Most isolated homes around the world. We have all thought about living in the middle of nowhere, a life with no nosy neighbours, no bin day battles and no noise. And for some plucky property owners, this is more than just wishful thinking. Everyone can use some peace and quiet now and then. A camping trip or a weekend in a cabin in the woods can usually take care of that. Certain people would rather live on the fringes of society. Nothing sounds better to them than a house with no neighbours for miles in the middle of nowhere. For some people, this isn't just a fantasy, but the actual lies. Check out some of the most isolated homes from around the world. Isolated places aren't built just for living in, so we'll take a look at some other remote places as well. 10. Just Room Enough Island. The name in this case says it all. This is the Just Room Enough Island, also known as Hub Island. It's the smallest inhabited island, measuring around 3,300 square feet across, and was purchased by the Iceland family. It's one of the cutest and most remote holiday retreats anywhere in the world. This tiny island is 1/13 of an acre and has a small vacation home built in the 1950s. Sat in the middle of Canada's St. Lawrence River, the aptly named island has just enough room for its single property. Despite its small surface area, the island also has a tree, shrubs, and even a small beach to soak up the sun. When the tide is high, the river water often laps against the house walls. It's a high price to pay for privacy, but pretty all the same. If it's low enough at this isolated house, the owners can set up some chairs and enjoy the view without a single neighbor in sight. 9. Stone House. You will be forgiven for thinking the Flintstones reside in this rock on a 2,600 feet mountain in Portugal. The Casa do Penedo, or House of Stone, is located near a mountain range in the north of the country. It looks like one of the houses from the Flintstones cartoon, and it's nestled into the Faith Mountains in Portugal. This house is built out of 2 giant stones held together with concrete. It's not as prehistoric as its overall design suggests, as it also features windows and a clean-cut front door, as well as a singled roof. At the first sight, this isolated home seems to be right out of a comic book. Originally built in 1974, this building receives no electricity. For lighting purposes, candles are preferred. It now serves as a holiday retreat and is still made up of the 4 original boulders that serve as the foundation, walls and ceiling on the house, complete with bulletproof windows and doors and a swimming pool, with which it was built. This building was initially used by the owners as a holiday destination and is now gradually becoming a tourist attraction. Once an unorthodox family holiday home, it has since been converted into a small museum. 8. The Rock House. This tiny house sits on a hard rock bottom in the middle of the Drina River in Serbia. Its story started in 1968 when a group of swimmers who needed shelter used this rock as a place to rest. With time, these savvy swimmers decided to build the home with planks of wood brought by the river itself. They started laying boards on top for more comfort, then they built a roof to protect them against the sun, and eventually a house was built. It's a tiny one-room structure, but it's everything it needs to be. The home has been rebuilt 7 times after being destroyed by high water levels. The rock is thought to have been a common resting place for swimmers, though in the summer it would get scorching hot. 7. Easter Island, Chile. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is technically part of Chile, even though the remote island sits about 2,200 miles off the coast. It's more than 2,600 miles from Tahiti, from which many tourists travel, 1,200 miles from Pitcairn Island, and 1,600 miles from the largest of the Gambia Islands in French Polynesia, Mangareva. The island is famous for its 887 monolithic statues, called moai, which were carved out of volcanic rock by indigenous Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500 CE. The island is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, housing fewer than 8,000 permanent residents. 34. Coincidentally, this remote island is the closest landmass to the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. also known as Point Nemo. It's a location in the ocean that is farthest from land. Point Nemo is more than 1,000 miles from the coasts of Easter Island, Ducie Island, one of the Pitcairn Islands, and Mayher Island off the coast of Antarctica. 6. Supai Village, Arizona. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has called Supai, Arizona, located within Havasu Canyon, the most remote community in the contiguous 48 states. It's the capital of the Havasupai Indian Reservation, which includes about 450 people. There are no roads. The only way in or out of the village is by helicopter or an 8-mile hiking trail, so mail gets delivered by mule. While the village is located near the Grand Canyon, the Havasupai tribe administers the land, which lies outside the boundary and jurisdiction of Grand Canyon National Park. Visitors can hike into the campground, although all travel has been suspended temporarily due to the pandemic. 5. The Holy Trinity Monastery, Greece. In central Greece, there's a gorgeous rock formation called Meteora, which features one of the most remote and most beautiful complexes of monasteries in the world. There are 6 monasteries built on natural pillars and hill-like boulders. Access to these remote monasteries was and continues to be difficult. Until the 1920s, it was done via ladders or large nets, after which steps were cut into the rocks and a bridge linked to the nearby plateau was built. The oldest of the 6, the Holy Trinity, was believed to be built in 1475 and overlooks the Greek town of Kalambaka. Meteora means suspended in the air in Greek, and this home embraces that. The monasteries rise from the precipitous sandstone pillars. Meteora is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is reached by ascending 140 steps that were carved directly into the cliff face and reach around 400 meters high. The gravity-defying gaff was featured in the 1981 James Bond film For Your Eyes Only, when the late Sir Roger Moore ascends the cliff. 4. Crystal Mill, Colorado. This charming structure, known as Crystal Mill, is located on an outcrop in Crystal, Colorado. It sits on top of the Crystal River, with its original vertical penstock, ladder-like structure, still hanging over the water. The compressor station was built in 1893 by George C. Eaton and B.S. Phillips and operated until 1917. It was previously known as Sheep Mountain Powerhouse, as it was built as a power plant for the Sheep Mountain Tunnel. Its water wheel generated compressed air for miners in the nearby silver mines. This beautiful picturesque setting is reputed to be the most photographed area in Colorado. 3. Chess Pavilion, China. Mount Huo is a scary hike, so getting to the Chess Pavilion takes some skill. The stairs carved into the mountain are steep and come without handrails. The alternative cliff-side path will have you walking on planks sticking out of wood along a vertical mountainside. Once you get to Southern Peak, you'll reach the Chess Pavilion and one of the world's most incredible views. Mount Huo is considered one of the scariest hikes in the world, and reaching the Chess Pavilion requires some fortitude. Those who make it are rewarded with a 360-degree view from the lofty point. Atop of the sacred mountain of Hushan in China is the Chess Pavilion. Its 12 kilometers road and narrow mountain trail make this one of the most secluded spots in the world. Spectacular gorges and ancient temples surround the Chess Pavilion, which has long been believed to possess spiritual powers. Taoists and nuns differ poachers and loggers from this tourist attraction popular with hikers and pilgrims. 2. Katskhi Pillar, Central Georgia. A church dedicated to Saint Maximus sits atop the Katskhi Pillar at about 130 feet high. The church contains a wine cellar and a crypt, among other features. The pillar wasn't climbed by researchers until after 1944. Abandoned and ruined, the original church was restored from 2005 to 2009. The Katskhi Pillar, a rock that is some 40 meters high, became the site of a small Christian church in the 7th century. It has been inhabited by a Georgian monk for the last 20 years, who ensures the maintenance of the church while enjoying the magnificent views of the forest below, descending just twice a week. Each day, monks living below make the nerve-jangling 20-minute ascent using a thin metal ladder bolted to the side of the rock to pray. Regarded as one of the most sacred landmarks on Earth, it consists of a church, a burial vault, 3 hermit cells, a wine cellar, and a curtain wall. Till date, only a handful of people who are invited to scale the rock are allowed to reach the sacred spot. 1. Ellidaey, Iceland. Ellidaey is the 3rd largest island in the Vestmannaeyjar archipelago, located south of Iceland. It measures 110 acres across and only home to a single building, a hunting lodge built by the Ellidaey Hunting Association. This solitary cabin is surrounded by little fauna and wildlife, but offers spectacular views. The association uses it for hunting puffins on the island. This house is often referred to as the most secluded home in the world, and it's easy to understand why. 5 families inhabited the island roughly 300 years ago. The single structure on the island was originally built as a lodge for puffin hunters. Oddly, the lodge is surrounded by a fence. This Icelandic property takes Isolated to a new level. On the island of Ellidaey, there is one single house across the vast grassy rock, so there is not a soul to borrow a cup of sugar off. The only neighbours would be the few stray cattle that amble about the cliffs. Little is known about the island and the house that sits upon it, withstanding the wild Atlantic waves, although some claim it is now simply used as storage. Others suggest it has been uninhabited since the 1930s due to the grueling and lonely lifestyle and the diet of fish and puffin. The home has its own sauna, fed by a natural rainwater collection system. Here is a list of some of the best cruise ships around the world.